episode of Real Talk for Your Overthinking Mind with Lisa Tarves. I'm Lisa Tarves. I'll introduce myself in a minute. But the first thing I wanted to do was get right to what today is about. And I'm going to ask you a question. I do that a lot. You know what's strange? Okay, that's not really asking you a question, but you know what I mean. Do you know what's strange? Some of the loneliest people I see and I work with don't actually look lonely. They go to work, they answer texts, right? They sit at a dinner table with family. They can be married, they can have children, have friends, coworkers, responsibilities, right? They can have all these things. And yet internally they feel emotionally alone almost all of the time. That's what we're going to unpack today. Being emotionally unseen or feeling like you're emotionally unseen. And honestly, I think this is one of the deepest kinds of pain a person can carry, because it's invisible. No one can see it. There's no dramatic breakup sometimes, no obvious crisis, no clear explanation why that people can point to and understand it. There's just this quiet feeling of nobody really sees me anymore. I think every one of us have gone through this at some point. I have. I've been through this, when I was younger, absolutely a few times. And over time, that feeling changes people. Feeling unseen changes you. It changes how they talk. It changes how they connect, how much of themselves they share with other people, how safe they feel emotionally, even how alive they feel inside. And if you've been feeling that kind of loneliness lately, you're not alone. Stay with me tonight, because I'm going to unpack a lot of this for you. I think a lot more people are carrying this than anybody even realizes. You can be in a room full of people and feel very lonely. Hi, again, I'm Lisa Tarves, and I help people make sense out of what they're feeling so they can actually feel better. And tonight I want to talk about the loneliness nobody really talks about. Not just physically being alone, because what I just said, like a lot of times you can be in a room full of people and feel completely alone. That's one of the worst, I think, kinds of loneliness, is having people all around you and you feel alone. You can feel unseen in relationships, emotionally disconnected from all the people around you. You can have caregiving loneliness, right? When you're caring for someone else. That's a type of loneliness. You can have aging loneliness, right? As you're getting older, you can feel more alone because you don't really know where you fit in anymore. It can be confusing for a little while. And that painful feeling of, like I said, I'm surrounded by people, but somehow I still feel lonely. Because honestly, this kind of loneliness is becoming incredibly common. And you should know that. Like, I'm seeing it more and more. People are telling me they feel this way. I'm trying to reach out to this person, I'm trying to help them the best way I know how. But at the same time, because there's always someone there that's also lonely. There's always people that don't even understand that you're lonely. So it is so common, and a lot of us just don't know it if you're not sharing it. And yet people rarely talk about it openly, and that's the kind of stuff I love to talk about, because it's stuff that nobody wants to talk about. That's my wheelhouse. All right, I do want to talk about it because I think that they might feel guilty, for feeling the way they feel, and what they're feeling is completely normal and completely valid, and it can be just a phase of your life, but it's there. And they feel even more guilty if they technically, have people around them. They have a spouse, they have children, they have friends, they have coworkers, they have all these people in their life, family that loves them, but they're not getting what they need out of them. Emotional loneliness and physical isolation are not the same thing. That's important. You can be alone and feel very peaceful. Gotta be honest. I married a pilot, works for Delta Airlines, still works for Delta Airlines, but he unfortunately got diagnosed with a kind of serious leukemia a few years ago, and he can't fly airplanes anymore. And he was home for 3 years all the time. So a lot of it, we were fighting for his life. He was fighting for his life, and I was living in a hospital room with him for a long time. And then he went into remission, and then he went through 2.5 years of chemo, and then he was home. And I'm like, oh, he's really here all the time. And I was used to my space. I was used to having those nights where the bed was all mine. I didn't have to worry about the TV being too loud. He wasn't there to say anything, when he was flying. But then he wasn't flying anymore, and I'm like, wow, you gotta get a job, buddy, Anyway, Delta hired him. He's doing great work, and he's doing something else. He just is not able to medically fly right now. The chemo took such a serious toll on him that he ended up with a couple brain bleeds, which they compare to a stroke, even though it was subdermal. It's a long story. Talk about that another day. But I get that, need to feel. Now he goes to New York to work for a week at a time, still again, and I don't mind it that much. He'll kill me if he sees this. Well, he won't kill me, but he won't be surprised, because I say it to him all the time. But so I feel peaceful being alone. Like I'm good with being alone for periods of time, not for forever. I also went through a point in my 30s when I was in between my first marriage and my second marriage, and I was raising my children, and they would go with their birth father every other weekend for usually just a night. But I'd be like, I wish I had somebody to hang out with. But, I was in this phase where I got divorced a little earlier than a lot of people did. So, I didn't have a lot of single friends at that point. And I'd be like, there should be some way for us to connect with other people, so we can go have coffee or go to have a drink somewhere and just get to know each other, see if we could maybe be friends. So I've been through both ends of it, I promise. But I've never minded being really alone and at peace. And everyone is different here. You should not necessarily be like me. There are a lot of people that feel very differently about it, and all of it makes sense and all of it works. But the problem is, you can also be surrounded by people and internally feel completely disconnected from everyone in the room. I've had this happen. You're like, okay, I don't know these people that well, but they invited me, so I'm going to go, you know what I mean? And you go, and everybody's talking, and everybody's got their, their inside stuff and their jokes or whatever. And I'm like, I got nothing. I'm a newbie, right? So I don't have a lot to share. And unless you latch on to somebody who sees that, feels that from you, it's kind of hard to make yourself feel like you fit in. So you can feel very disconnected, and be, like I said, in a room full of people. And then there's that second kind, and that can hurt, right? That can really hurt. So I think one of the deepest human needs is not just being loved. I don't think it's just being loved. I'm supposed to stand up. I'm in the middle of a podcast. These Apple Watches. I think one of the deepest human needs is not just being loved. It's being understood. Being emotionally recognized. Feeling like someone truly sees who you are beneath that surface that we all have, right? And when that's missing for a long time, people start feeling invisible emotionally. Even inside a relationship, right? It doesn't, you can be married and have this relationship and still feel disconnected and lonely, because over time many relationships slowly become logistical. Who's picking up the groceries? What time is the appointment? Did you remember to pay the mortgage payment, right? Did you remember to pay the gas bill, the electric bill, whatever? What's for dinner? That's a big one. And it's basically about who's going to handle what. And that's what your relationship can actually become. And somewhere along the way, people stop emotionally meeting each other. It's not always intentionally. Sometimes people are just exhausted, and that's totally fair. Sometimes they're overstimulated, burned out, distracted, stressed, just emotionally overwhelmed themselves. But the result can still feel incredibly lonely, especially when you're physically near someone but emotionally so far away from them, right? So you can deeply love someone. You can be in a relationship where you deeply love another person, but feel like you're on different planets at the same time, like where you are in your head, where you are emotionally. That kind of loneliness hits differently, because you don't just miss the connection you probably had before, right? You don't just miss that. You miss feeling emotionally felt, right? Does that make sense? You miss feeling emotionally felt, emotionally seen, emotionally heard. And that confuses a lot of people, right? So they think, I shouldn't feel lonely. I have a family. I have a partner. I talk to people every single day. But loneliness isn't measured that way. Loneliness isn't measured by proximity. Who's around you? That's not how it works. It's measured by emotional connection. You can spend all day interacting with people, all day long at work, whatever you do. You can be interacting with people without feeling emotionally nourished by any of it. I'm going to say that one more time. You can spend all day interacting with people without feeling emotionally nourished by any of it. And I think if you really think about it, you'll understand what I'm saying. Especially if most of your interactions revolve around responsibility, performance, caretaking, productivity, or just surface water cooler conversation, right? How are the kids? Oh, what about that weather out there today? All of those things. That's just surface conversation. It's not being emotionally heard or understood. And honestly, I think a lot of adults are emotionally starving while appearing socially functional. They're emotionally starving, but they don't look like it. It doesn't look like that. I think that sentence alone describes many people right now. And I think it got worse with COVID, when we had to isolate. If you were lucky, you've got another couple that you were together the day that, maybe friends or whatever, that you were together the day that it got announced that everything was shutting down. And so you're like, well, we all have it if we have it, so let's hang out together and just not hang out with other people. I mean, that's a thing, that's something that made, I think, a lot of people more lonely. You're emotionally starving, but socially functioning, even after COVID. And eventually people start feeling disconnected, not only from others, but actually from themselves, right? They don't feel connected to themselves anymore. They don't feel connected. They don't feel connected to the earth. There's just such a disconnect. Human beings are not meant to survive on emotional scraps, not forever. You can have a few weeks or so that you're just getting the littlest amount of attention or the least amount of time from someone. They can be going through their own thing, whatever, and that can be temporary. Human beings are not meant to survive on emotional scraps, not forever. So this next one I'm going to talk about, which is the loneliness of being a caregiver. I think this one's important, and I think a lot of people feel this one. So I'm going to just talk about that specifically for a minute. Caregivers are often some of the loneliest people emotionally. Absolutely. Because everybody leans on them. Well, while very few people ask, how are you? How are you really doing? I noticed this with my husband's cancer. And it was a thing that actually ruined some of my friendships or definitely stalled them for a while. People constantly calling and asking how he was doing, but nobody stopping and taking time to say, how are you? What do you need? Do you need to talk? Do you need to? I may have said no because my mind was 100,000 other places, but you notice afterwards, you think, wow, nobody really asked how I was. Everybody was asking about how he was. Obviously, he's the one with this horrible cancer. But at the same time, I would think your friends would be kind of wanting your friends, and not just your friends, it's your family. It's neighbors. It can be anybody. It can be coworkers, whatever. They don't really ask how you're doing, and that's the role that's a caregiver thing, right? And over time, caregivers often become emotionally invisible inside their own lives. they are known as, they are known as the helper, the strong one. I got that all the time. I still get that one because I am massively strong. Not that I can lift a lot of weight or anything, but I'm saying emotionally very strong. The responsible one. Duh, somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody's got to be responsible in this barrel of monkeys. And you're the emotional support system. The reliable person everyone depends on. That's a caregiver role. But who emotionally takes care of you, right? Who's taking care of the caregiver? Honestly, many caregivers stop even expecting support after a while. And I got to that point. Like it hurt me for a while. And then I was just like, you know what? This isn't about me, because this was not my cancer. This was not my illness. And so I backed up and I was just like, okay, I'm going to stop expecting anything from anyone. And I'm just going to, embrace anything one that actually asks a question. And it was so interesting because my husband, working for Delta Airlines, has some very amazing friends. Those are a great group of pilots, by the way. Amazing group of pilots and an amazing group of people that I am proud to know and call friends. Truly. He has the best friends, and they were great to him during his journey. And one of them, I remember a couple of them actually a few of them, even when my friends weren't and the people I knew weren't. Some of them don't know what to say, and that's fair. I 100% understand that. But I had people that barely knew me, that I'd met once or twice at some conferences or things wives were invited to, that would be like, Lisa, how are you doing? And the first time it happened, I actually burst into tears. I was like, nobody asked me that. Nobody asked me that. I didn't even know how to explain how I was feeling, how scared I was, how confused I was. I mean, he was in a coma so much of the time. I was lonely. He wasn't there to talk to. He's the person I always talk to. He wasn't there. And so I had all these different emotions, and somebody finally asked. The first time it happened, I literally burst into tears. And then after that, when someone would ask, I wouldn't even know what to say. I'll be like, I can't even tell you what you can do for me. I can't even tell you what I need right now. I would have to think about it, and that was the honest truth, because you get into this mode. The caregiver gets into the mode of caring for someone else. So caregivers give up expecting support. It just happens. So many of them, most of them, I should say, are used to being the one who gives the support. They're the givers. They're the people that are giving the support during whatever time they're going through with whoever they're caring for. It happens in marriages. It happens in parenting. It happens in caring for aging parents. It happens when you're helping sick family members. Anytime you're emotionally supporting a struggling partner with maybe a mental illness or grief that does not have to be the death of someone. Grief comes in all forms and packages, and I'll hit on that in one of my future podcasts. But sometimes it's even just being the stable one in a friendship. So I'm sure a lot of you feel like, oh my gosh, I go out with this group and I'm the only one that keeps their head on their shoulders, That absolutely can happen. So eventually what happens is people stop seeing the caregiver as a human being. They stop seeing them as human, and they stop seeing them as someone who has emotional needs, that needs emotional contact. They start seeing them as an emotional infrastructure all on their own. And that creates a very specific kind of loneliness. The loneliness of constantly being needed without feeling deeply cared for. All right? So now we're going to talk about aging loneliness, because this is another thing, and I am sure I've mentioned this if you ever actually watch my podcast and watch the whole thing. I'm turning a very big number this year, and I am like, what? It's just anyway. I have a whole episode already written for that thing, but that's next month. This is something people don't talk about nearly enough, is the loneliness of aging. There's a loneliness that can come with aging that has very little to do with physical isolation. It's not about you backing away or not being there. Sometimes it's loneliness of feeling forgotten. Sometimes it's realizing life changed faster than you expected. Honestly, speed of light. That's how I feel like life is going right now. It's the speed of light. It's so quick. You have kids, boom, they're in their 30s. It's unreal how fast the time goes. Enjoy every minute. Sometimes it's grieving old versions of yourself quietly, right? That's normal. Sometimes it's watching your role in the world shift. You know, you're now doing different things. Your children grew up, your parents have passed away, your friendships have all changed, your body has changed, your energy levels have changed, and life gets quieter. Not to mention what happens to our brains. Oh my gosh. I was just talking with friends about this today. Like, what is happening? I've talked about this before, and I'll continue to talk about it. But like the forgetfulness and the walking into a room and being like, oh crap, why did I walk in here? You know? Just all those little things, and they start they're happening more and more often as you're aging. Yeah, that's a real kick in the, let's say, gut. But honestly, with all the changes that are happening with you, the transition can feel disorienting, and especially in a culture that glorifies youth while ignoring emotional aging completely. Right? They just idolize, I mean, all the influencers that are out there. I mean, some of these kids are in flipping high school and have 300,000 followers or subscribers on TikTok or whatever. And I'm just like, what do you have to say that's that interesting when you're acting like a little snot in high school? Like, it just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. And it blows my mind, like, my kids didn't have access to probably much more than Facebook and Instagram back then. And Snapchat became a thing too. But TikTok, oh my gosh, blows my mind. Blows my mind, the stuff that kids are putting out there today. But anyway, again, another podcast. I say that a lot because I wander off on what I'm talking about. So a lot of people, as they're aging, are secretly wondering, do people even still see me? Do I still matter? Would anyone notice if I just disappeared emotionally? Those thoughts are far more common than people realize. Those thoughts are far more common than people realize. And that they can create profound emotional loneliness. Profound emotional loneliness. And the next thing, the loneliness of not being able to talk about how you feel. I just got rid of my notes. See, I have to have bullet points or I lose track because I'm aging. Totally normal. Anyway, the loneliness of not being able to talk about how you actually feel. A lot of people are lonely because they no longer feel safe being emotionally honest. Maybe every time they've tried, they were dismissed, right? Totally possible. Maybe they were interrupted. I am famous for interrupting people. Ask anyone. Like, I want to get to what I want to get to. I want to, like, I'm so annoying with this. And I recognize it. I just, I don't know. I just can't control it. Anyway, I could if I tried. But if they completely get interrupted or judged or minimized, right? Or maybe told, you're too sensitive. You overthink everything. You should be grateful. I hear this all the time. Other people have it so much worse. So eventually they stop sharing what they need to talk about. They just stop sharing it. And this is important. When people repeatedly feel emotionally unsafe, they stop revealing themselves, even with the people they love. And after years of that, they can become deeply isolated internally while still functioning normally externally. That's one of the saddest kinds of loneliness there is. And that's so true. Being emotionally trapped inside yourself while everybody around you assumes you're doing fine, you're okay. The next type, I know I'm listing a lot of types, but there are a lot of types of loneliness. Why so many people feel disconnected right now. I may have to sneeze in a second. I'm trying to fight it, I really am. But outside, achoo, 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 achoo. I hope I remember to cut that out. If not, well, that's how I sneeze. Anyway, why so many people feel disconnected right now? Honestly, modern life itself is intensifying loneliness. People are overwhelmed, they're distracted, they're burnt out. They're chronically stimulated, constantly scrolling, constantly consuming, constantly rushing. And many people are interacting all day without completely connecting even at all. They're not really connecting with someone, but they're interacting. Social media, right? Online videos, online instructions, how to, your TV isn't working right. And you're like, oh, I will look up on YouTube how to fix this specific problem on my TV. Whatever it is, that's interacting, that's not connecting. We have more access to people than ever before, but many people feel emotionally further apart. And then something else happens too with that. When people become emotionally exhausted, they often lose the energy required for meaningful connection. They lose the energy, so they isolate, and they isolate more and more and more. They withdraw more. They stop reaching out. They stop initiating, like a phone call or a text message. They stop explaining themselves, not because they don't care, because they're emotionally depleted. And then loneliness grows even deeper at that point. And it's sad, but it's happening all over. And then there's this other moment of when people start to feel and realize that they feel alone. Usually this realization happens quietly, not dramatically. Maybe you're sitting next to someone and suddenly realize you haven't felt emotionally connected in a very long time. That happens. Maybe you're scrolling your phone late at night, desperately looking for something that makes you feel understood. One of the reasons I started this podcast. Overthinking, real talk for the overthinking mind. I wanted to be something people could watch and feel better so they can close their eyes and fall asleep. Maybe you finished taking care of everybody else, and this is for the young people with kids too, and they realized nobody checked in on you all day long. Nobody bothered. And that moment can feel heartbreaking. Because humans are wired for emotional connection. Humans are wired for emotional connection, not just interaction. And there's a difference. Connection. And another part of this, I know this one's going a little long, but I wanted to really hit home with a lot of this loneliness thing, because none of you are actually alone, and it is fixable, and it is something you can get help with. But you can feel lonely even if people love you. You know people love you, you know that. But this is important. Sometimes people genuinely love you but still don't emotionally understand you. Love and emotional attunement are not always the same thing. Not at all. Some people care deeply, but they don't know how to emotionally connect well. I think that's just a human trait. They don't necessarily know how to connect with someone else. Some people love through responsibility instead of emotional presence. I've seen that. I think we all have. Some people were never taught emotional intimacy themselves. Emotional intimacy, very different than physical intimacy. Emotional intimacy. If you're in a marriage without that, it's a tough thing to get through. Some people end up then self-blaming, right? They can self-blame because many lonely people secretly believe there must be something wrong with me, right? This is going on, that's going on, this isn't going on, this isn't going on. Something must be wrong with me. It has to be me. Because many people believe that. Many people just believe that it has to be true. But often they're simply emotionally unnourished. There's a difference. There's a difference. And people actually need, let's start with what they don't need. People do not need perfection emotionally. Not most people, I mean, I'm sure there are some, but most people do not need perfection emotionally. They need presence. They need presence, right? They need moments where they feel heard, they feel safe, they feel emotionally understood, emotionally considered, emotionally remembered. That's so important. Small things matter deeply, and sometimes we forget that. Someone noticing your exhaustion, right? So you're noticing, wow, you look tired, or you aren't acting like yourself. You feel emotionally exhausted. Someone really asking a real question about you. Someone listening without trying to fix it, right? Someone remembering what hurts you. Someone slowing down enough to truly just see you. That's the kind of connection people are starving for right now. Not performance, presence. Presence. So if you've been feeling lonely lately, even around other people, I really want you to hear this tonight. Your loneliness is real. Even if your life looks fine on the outside, and maybe even on the inside. Even if people depend on you, even if technically you're not alone. Emotional loneliness is still loneliness. And honestly, many people carry this. Many people deeply care. Emotionally intelligent people carry this pain silently for so many years. But your need for connection does not make you weak. It makes you human. You were never meant to carry life entirely alone emotionally. It wasn't meant to be that way. And maybe tonight, instead of criticizing yourself for feeling disconnected, you simply acknowledge something gentler. I miss feeling emotionally close to people. I miss feeling understood. I miss feeling seen. Those are gentler ways of dealing with what you're actually feeling. That honestly matters, because sometimes healing starts right there with noticing it yourself. Not pretending you're okay anymore, just finally admitting, I feel alone sometimes. I feel alone sometimes. And if that's where you are tonight, I hope this episode helped you feel a little less invisible. I'm Lisa Tarves, and you don't have to figure all of this out on your own. Take a breath. You're doing better than you think you are. You're doing better than you think you are. And if your mind starts getting loud again, you know where to find me. On social media. As much as I complain about social media, I'm all over social media. All my videos are on YouTube. My podcasts are on YouTube and also on Spotify and everywhere else podcasts can be found. It's called Real Talk for the Overthinking Mind, for Your Overthinking Mind. I always get that wrong. It's my podcast, so I named it that. Anyway, Real Talk for Your Overthinking Mind. So you'll be able to find me. I'll be right here. And I will talk to you on the next episode. Thanks so much.